Hello and welcome to a very cold episode of the weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown for the week of January 15th, 2018. I forgot the date, just had to look at it. It's fine. It's 19 degrees in my house right now, and it's very cold. But we're gonna have a good episode anyway. We start out this week with Bozebeats number 1, Tamaki. And this is pretty cool. Warrior monks fighting lightning dragons and evil spirits and stuff like that. It's always been a really cool premise, in my opinion. The idea that religious figures from different religions are fighting the darkness that the regular people don't see. It's always something that I enjoy. Exorcists and monks and, preacher. Stuff like that. So this was a really cool premise right off the bat. I really like Ryudaiji's design. I think he looks really cool. The vestments and everything to do with him are really cool. Tamaki seems okay. I like him well enough. The Raised by Wolves things has kind of been done quite a bit, but at the same time, I like wolves, so it's fine. And the way that this one turns out is really sad, with the phrase, "Thank you for loving me." Which that phrase, something about it always gets me right here. It just, So yeah, this was a lot of fun. I really loved seeing the Kodama and what it had become, because it was a forest spirit, but it wasn't normal anymore. It was corrupted. And the idea that the spirits that aren't sent on like they're supposed to be become these things. Obviously, we've seen that a bunch before in a bunch of different kind of anime, including Bleach is probably the most popular that had that premise, where that's what the hollows are, is spirits that weren't sent on right. But I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I thought the reveal of the spiritual pressure Gatling gun that fires 15mm prayer bead rounds, that was sick. I loved that. But nothing, I think, was as impactful this chapter as the reveal of without Tamaki even wanting it to happen, his mother wolf's soul being shoved into his body, where it will join with him, and she'll watch over him for the rest of his days, I suppose. Or the line that Ryudaiji has at the end that is about how Boze aren't there as much to take care of the evil spirits that remain as much as they are to help out the people that remain after they lose somebody. And that's a really good line that shows that there's so much more to his character than just killing monsters. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely keep up with it, at least for a little bit, and see where it goes. See if it's something I want to keep reading. Jump starts are always cool to me, because it lets me take a look at a manga that I may not cover on the show, but a manga that I may want to keep reading. Like, I'm still reading Full Drive, and that's still great. I love Full Drive. But obviously we're not covering that on the show, because it's not part of Viz's Jump. That's translated into English, so, a lot of fun, though. Full Drive's really good. You should take a look at it if you haven't yet. And if you want to hear my thoughts on the first 3 chapters of Full Drive's a different series, check out a couple weekly Shonen Jumps back. I think it was like 7 or 8 weeks back for the chapter 3. But Bozebeats was really good. I'm looking forward to the rest. I'm curious as to where this is going to go. Is it going to become a high school style, where he goes to an academy for a monastery, I suppose, for monks to train, or what? But I guess we'll see. The only other big thing that hit me is that he looks a lot like Rin from Blue Exorcist. Like, just Tamaki's design. I kept just seeing Rin on the page and was like, that's a little close. And there's enough difference with the thing about his eye underneath here and on his arm. And his hair was different, it's shorter. But it just, I definitely noticed it. Still, really fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Next up, we have My Hero Academia 166, Proud of the Licensed Trainees. Man, this was a really good chapter. The kids going all out, because they feel, like we talked about last time, their powers make them strong, they think. And they see all these other people losing, and they go, I wouldn't lose that fight. They see heroes losing fights and go, I wouldn't lose that fight. And before they had All Might to look up to, and All Might was a great role model, but now All Might's gone, and everybody knows Endeavor's a terrible person. So, they need new role models. And the fact that this whole arc has been the setup for Endeavor to change, while also being, Bakugo and Shoto and everybody else moving forward that didn't get their license before, like, that's really good. We also find out about the quirk singularity doomsday theory this chapter, which is a really interesting idea that makes perfect sense, because as quirks combine, like we see with Shoto, with Todoroki, they will eventually become too powerful for people to control. Which means that each subsequent generation will be more and more wild than the previous generations, because their powers are just more wild. That makes perfect sense. And it kind of makes it where what Overhaul was working on might not have been such a bad thing after all. Past that, though, Bakugo this chapter. Oh, man, Bakugo this chapter. Just revealing that he was a part of the plan to show the kids how they could use their powers for other things, and then dragging the leader to play with everybody else by telling him that if you're so critical of everybody else, you won't notice your own weakness, basically. Telling him completely honestly, don't make the mistake I did. And the kid recognizes the honesty and is like, oh, how could I not be moved by that? Yeah, of course. So I really loved that, but to follow that up with, again, the juxtaposition that is constantly Bakugo's advancement and Endeavor's advancement, to bottle cap the entire chapter with All Might telling Endeavor the purpose for their strength is clear, while Todoroki shows a kid how beautiful fire can be. Very poignant, very good, really, really solid chapter. I loved it. Next up we have One Piece 891, They Believe in Me. Luffy and Katakuri still at it. Big News Morgan is alive! We also get introduced to Flampe, King of the Sisters. And like always, anytime we introduce a new character in Whole Cake, I get why there's a lot of children to Big Mom, and I get why we're still introducing characters. But every time I ask myself, did we need this new character? And not really. I mean, I get where Oda's coming from with this new character. Flampe is supposed to be the showing that Katakuri is idolized by all of his siblings, and that they're fighting for his affection because he's perfect. And it's also interesting that Flampe makes the comment that he has to win, and he has to do it quickly, because otherwise he'll look less than perfect to her. Not just he'll look less than perfect, and that's not okay, but he'll look less than perfect to her. So that's a nice touch, to show that, the siblings aren't completely on Katakuri's train. He needs to be perfect or they're not okay with it. But at the same time, we already knew from Brulee's speech that the siblings think that Katakuri's perfect. It felt a little weird to introduce a new character for, honestly, not much of a reason. There was a nice joke where she wants to be King of the Sisters, and I'm pretty sure that's written in the exact same way as Luffy saying he wants to be King of the Pirates, so that's a fun little gag. But other than that, she didn't really do much other than stab one of her own guys because he wouldn't shoot Luffy right. Katakuri, still recognizing Luffy's will, wants him to stop, wants him to quit, because it's getting annoying now that he just keeps getting up. And Luffy's trying to dodge. He's anticipating the attacks, which either means that he's observation hockey's getting better, or that he's just gotten so used to the attacks now that he's dodging them. But also, when he's swinging, he's not thinking about his attack, so Katakuri can't read it as well either, which is obviously a really good idea. At the same time, Luffy's kind of an instinct fighter. He doesn't plan a lot. Sometimes he does, and those plans are really good, like the stuff with Don Krieg. But most of the time, his fights are just, I'm going to take you down, I'm going to keep getting up until I can't get up anymore, which is after you're beaten. I say that. The stuff with Inaru and Crocodile, there's a lot of fights where Luffy fights smart. But then there's also fights where Luffy doesn't fight smart. And this fight, for the most part, has been Luffy not fighting smart. And it's nice to see that he's trying. Past that, though, we get more shots of the cake. And the middle of this chapter kind of dragged for me. Because we get more shots of the cake and the whole crew there. As Capone is just like, we didn't even have to poison it. And Sanji's talking about how hard it was to make the cake. But that it doesn't matter because his crew believed in him. And Luffy says the same thing, that he'll keep getting up because his crew believes in him. Then we cut to what's way more interesting, in my opinion, which is the stuff with Big Mom and the Sunny, and Chopper has gone Monster Point to try and block Prometheus' flames, and Prometheus is huge, and he's like the sun above the water, and like setting the sails on fire a little bit. And that's such a cool moment where Chopper knows he's not going to be able to do anything, but his goal is to try and drag her into the sea with him. Like, that's really clever. Granted, he would die doing it, but it's a really clever idea. But then Big Mom smells the cake, which means that maybe we're finally moving into the final part of this arc, which will be Luffy beating Katakuri, Big Mom getting the cake and becoming docile, and then, them all getting away. I don't know, I really like Whole Cake Island, but it's gone on for way longer than I thought it would. I thought we were almost out of this arc like 12 chapters ago when everybody was setting sail and Pedro had just died and Luffy was fighting Katakuri. It's fine. I'm still really liking it. It's just dragging a little bit in the middle section for me. For this chapter, really it bummed me out a little bit because I was really enjoying the start of the chapter and the end of the chapter. But that said, still a really solid chapter. I liked it. So next up, we have Food Wars 246, Queen of Cute. Momo may be a member of social media and a prolific one, and hold the hearts of girls everywhere struggling to read with her cute desserts. But the Ice Queen, Erina Nakari, is just as dangerous. We get a couple of fun references in this chapter to previous Shokugekis and red bean paste being used, which, that was Megami. The Doriaki, also Megami. So Erina is using that to beat Momo, which is really nice. References to Azami's plan, and when someone goes to ask more, he gets cut off because the actual bout is happening, and everybody's paying attention to that. The souffle that turns out to actually be a Doriaki is a really good surprise, and getting to see Megami's reaction to it's really good. The best parts of the chapter to me are the hype that the crew in the cage are getting when they see that Urara wants some of the Doriaki, and the part where Erina offers it to Momo. Because next chapter is going to be Momo being blown away and having to call Erina instead of Erinian. And it's going to be a really good chapter next week. The judges were into it this chapter. It's a lot of fun. It was really all about the reveals of why Momo went to Totsuki and the Doriaki reveal, but it was still a really fun chapter. I enjoyed it. Next up, we have Dr. Stone 42, Tale for the Ages. The 100th Tale of the 100 Tales. Senku Ishigami. We get to see Senku's dad, failed to become an astronaut. We get to see Senku and Taiju making him a suit to help him learn the breaststroke. That's really cute. Obviously it didn't work, but it gave him the willpower to try. And he succeeds. And he makes it to space. And while he's there, Earth is turned to stone. I had never even considered what happened to the astronauts. It never crossed my mind. And it makes perfect sense. We had talked about how maybe it was a story of something he did when he was still alive, when Senku was still around, and, that story got passed on, or maybe somebody that Senku knew and had a big effect on, had broken out of stone sooner. But, of course, Byakuya, if he made a village, would name it Ishigami Village, because that's his last name too. And of course he would tell stories of his genius son, Senku. And it's actually super sad to think about Byakuya, who was so excited to go to space, and come back and tell his son about all this stuff, to come back and find that everybody's been turned to stone, and he can't find Senku anywhere, because Senku's been dragged away by the tide, and is washed up in that cave. So then he tells other people about Senku. And that story gets passed along with the stories of Momotaro, and so many other, big prolific myths and legends that got passed down in those tales. The most important one was the one about Senku. I love this chapter. I absolutely love this chapter. And it makes perfect sense that there'd be a whole village. Remember, we talked about, how could there be a whole village here? Somebody would have had to thaw out really early or break out really early and then find someone to mate with. And it makes perfect sense if they were astronauts. And all of these people are the descendants of those astronauts. But man, now I just want to see Byakuya's story, because that's super tragic. If they give us a chapter of him desperately trying to find Senku's stone body, that's gonna break me. It's gonna break me so much. This is a great chapter. Next up, we have Black Clover 140, and speaking of great chapters, so first off, remember last week when I said that this could turn out well, but right now I'm real worried about it, introducing a new character? I was wrong. It turned out great. It's a fun gimmick right off the bat, with this guy who we learn later, his name's Henry, being super slow at answering questions. We find out that's also because he doesn't talk much, and because he's sick. But having him be really slow to answer questions, and Gosh, who of course we know is not a patient person, interrupting him, and then Henry starts to answer the next question and never says his name in that part, that's really good. The fact that this is not a new character, though, this is someone who's been referenced over and over and over and over and over. We have the references of, it being a haunted house that the Black Bulls live in. We have the references to Charmy saying that she thought she saw something. All that stuff that we kind of just hand-waved away and was like, oh yeah, their hideout's weird. The comments of the rooms moving from the first set of chapters where Magna is introducing Asta to the house and showing him around and talking about how, yeah, things shift around, better get used to it. That's all been Henry. And the fact that Yami gathered up all these oddballs that were really energetic to live in this house because they needed to give up some of their own mana to keep Henry alive, just so Yami's hideout wouldn't be a place where somebody had died. That's great! And so that when Henry says that he views them all as friends, of course he does. They're keeping him alive. Every single day he has fun interactions because they're there. And before that, he was alone, dying in this house. And I saw some comments on some of the discussion forums for this chapter being like, oh, well, his magic, of course he has a disease that just so happens to make him weak. His magic is literally magic that binds him to a location. If there's nothing for him to get out of that location, of course he'd be weak. It's a really clever idea, and it makes me very happy with how it was used. And to cap all this off with him using a house mech by making the hideout a Black Bull to fight. Like, excellent. Very well done. Very well done. Loved this chapter. Next up we have Robot Laserbeam 40, Last Day of the Daizon Open Part 6. We get to see Tomiya being useful this chapter, which is really cool. I like it when the side characters get to prove there's a reason why they're there, and Tomiya definitely proved it. It's that he is the guy who is really good at measurements and getting exact distances for Robo to be able to calculate. For somebody like Robo, that's vital. He has to have that. So, very well done, Tomiya. Then we get to see Dorian being desperate. He doesn't know about the limit to the EX lasers, because of course he doesn't. And so he's trying to ramp it up to keep up. Everybody thinks that Robo has this in the bag, but Robo does not agree. And Dorian knuckles down and makes a shot on the green from 400 yards away in regulation. Under regulation. So, this is not over yet, and could still escalate quite a bit. I'm predicting Robo's going to have to use at least one more, probably two more EX lasers, and get really close to that fifth, but not have to use it. We'll see, though, because it could go either way. It was a fun chapter, though. Really short, but still fun. Next up, We Never Learned 46, Her Feminine Wiles X Him. This was a really fun chapter. All the gags built around Miharu trying to seduce Yuiga, and him being too focused on studying to really pay attention to it. The fact that she's now the third girl that he's called by her given name, the first one being Uruka Takamoto, and the second one being Furuhashi, who obviously he had to call her that name because they were pretending to be brother and sister when they stayed in the hotel room together. And now that I talk about that stuff, I go back at that and go, man, this harem series has gone some places in 46 chapters. But the stuff with Miharu and her misunderstanding and how it affects the way she views everything, the moment where Mafuyu Kurisu, I'm not used to calling her by her given name, goes to open up a can of peaches and falls, and Miharu views it as jealousy, but then goes and, starts to open up the can of peaches, doesn't know where the can opener is, and Yuiga tells her where it is because he put it there because he cleaned. She brings out the peaches after he asks if she wants him to do it. All that stuff happens. He reminds her that she cut her hand. From anybody's perspective that didn't know, it would look exactly like they were in a relationship. So when it comes to misunderstandings in harem, this is not even a misunderstanding that you can blame her for. This one makes perfect sense. Because she still thinks her sister's perfect and would never need help with cleaning. Everything to do with Miharu having brought alcohol that's in the exact same colored can as the soft drink that Chrissy was drinking before. And so she gets drunk, and so comes to Yuiga's defense when he defends her, and pats him on the head. Miharu taps out. She gives up. She's like, yep, can't do anything about this one. But we also learned about a different side of Miharu here, which is that she is kind of a stickler. She's 100% dedicated to what she's working on. And to, if she's going to teach somebody something, she's going to teach it to them. We learned about that with Pero, and then at the end of the chapter with the stuff with Miharu and Yuiga, where she won't let him leave because she promised him 24 hours of studying and they have 16 hours to go. There were also some other really good moments in this chapter, like Yuiga making the comment to Kurisu that he's going to have to try anyway because this is the perfect opportunity to learn something more that he can pass on to the girls. And the fact that that's how he lives his life, we don't see that very often because we know it, but it's not brought back up to our attention. Yuiga is constantly trying to better himself and better the other people he's attached to. And I really like that about his character. That this is not something that anybody would just go, yeah, I want to learn from this girl who I don't know that is kind of hostile towards me. But instead, his response is, yes, please let me learn so that I can pass that on. So this was a really fun chapter. And of course, we got to see Kurisu head pat Yuiga, which was really cool. He looked absolutely shocked and not certain, very uncertain in that panel. And that was really good. But, they do look like a married couple half the time. I'm just saying. Best girl Mafuyu. Finally for this week, we have the Promised Neverland 70, Hide and Seek. Emma asked the questions we've all been dying to know for this last week, and it is that Lucas. He has a really good scene where he looks like he's about to break down because he's so excited that Nameless Man is still alive. And he's been surviving all this time, hoping that he had survived, and wanting to ruin this place. And hopefully soon we get Nameless Man's name. I assume it's going to be when he and Lucas see each other. But it's really interesting to me that he's been building up this force and still doesn't know that the human world is a good distance away. The fact that he's been there this whole time and there's also a door there that Minerva left behind that they can't get behind because they don't have a pin, but Emma has the pin. So they can get behind it now. We'll get to see what's behind there probably in a couple chapters. Maybe next week, but something tells me I doubt it. That his goal was to shut this place down, not just to stop the demons, but also to secure that door so that he could go get his friend who has the pin and bring him back. Like, that's crazy. That's awesome. And then, of course, at the end of this chapter, we see Nameless Man using that pin when Ray is thinking internally about how Emma has the pin and he can't find Goldie Pond again. Nameless Man is being proactive, pulling out his pen to locate Goldie Pond, which shows that Emma really got through to him. And he's got a plan as to how they can get in. It's the way he got out last time. And they're gonna take that path. And I'm really excited because I'm afraid Nameless Man's probably gonna die. Or Lucas is probably gonna die saving him. But it's really cool to see his growth as a character, how far he's come from a guy who, threatened to stab some people or to shoot Emma, and is now about to go into the belly of the beast to save her with no idea that his only surviving friend is in there. And it's really cool. I really like this character, and granted, I've really liked him since day one, but he's only grown on me since then, and I'd really like to know his name, preferably before he dies, because I expect him and Lucas both to die at some point. But, it's fine. We'll get there. Time will tell. Time will tell. And finally for this week, we have the lightning round! Bozebeats number 1, Tamaki, was really solid. I liked it. It didn't grab me the way that I had hoped that it would, but the action was fun, the suspense was good. I'm just not super sold on the Raised by Wolves thing. I think it's a cool idea, but I feel like it's been overused a little bit. Granted, this could use it in a different way now that their souls have been fused. And the other wolf's name was Zaji, and that's a pretty cool wolf name. Why not? Sure. It was a fun chapter. I really liked Ryudaji's design, and the vestments are really cool, so I'm looking forward to more. Can't wait to see what Tamaki's vestment is. My Hero Academia 166, proud of the licensed trainees. Really solid chapter. Really enjoyed it. The stuff with Bakugo and the kid, the stuff with All Might and Endeavor again, and with Todoroki showing the flame. They got through to those kids in the best way possible, and we found out about the Quirk Singularity Doomsday Theory, which I guarantee you will come back. Really good chapter. One Piece 891, They Believe in Me. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good. I'm really down on the middle of the chapter, but the start and the end are really solid in my opinion. Chopper trying to block Prometheus' flames and threatening to take Big Mom into the ocean with him, and Luffy desperately still fighting, trying to hold off Katakuri, trying to find a way to beat him. That's really cool in my opinion. It takes me back to Luffy fighting Rob Lucci, or Luffy fighting Bluno, or Luffy fighting Crocodile or Inaru, where things were tough, and he had to pull out a win not from raw power, but from being smart and thinking about it. Next up, Food Wars 246, Queen of Cute. That was a pretty good chapter. I'll give it a thumbs up. There was some lag here, I guess you could say, because it felt really short, as we spent some time on Momo's past and everything there that we probably could have covered last chapter. But the stuff with Arena and the Ice Queen being the Ice Queen was really cool, so I really liked it still. Dr. Stone 42, Tale for the Ages, 2 thumbs up. This was a great chapter. The stuff with Byakuya, the stuff with Ishigami Village, the terrible revelation that leads to the fact that Byakuya, who Senku might have still held some hope. I mean, it's been 100 years, but he might have still, or it's probably been longer than that. But it has been longer than that. We got a much longer time than that given way before, but that's fine. I don't remember it right now, but that's fine. The fact that Senku had probably given up on his dad a long time ago, only now to find out that his dad definitely made it back to Earth and found a world without his son in it, that's super tragic, and I love it. It's 2 thumbs up for sure. That's perfect. Black Clover 140, you probably don't know, but 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed everything to do with Henry and the house magic and how that worked and the transformation magic. We'll see how much he gets used in the future, but if we ever get back to just the Black Bulls in the Black Bulls hideout doing stuff, then I can see Henry being a big part of that since he can shift the rooms around and have fun. So, one day maybe we'll get back to just down to earth and Black Clover. Next up, Robot Laserbeam 40 is a pretty good, it was a pretty good chapter. Tomoya getting to do some stuff was really cool, and then it's a setup chapter. Really, it's very short setup chapter for what's going to happen in the next couple chapters, but I'm just kind of getting tired of the last day of the Daizon Open. Like, it feels like it's been going on forever, even though it's only been 6 chapters. But, I'll give it 1 thumb up. It was still enjoyable. We Never Learned 46, Her Feminine Wiles X Him. I really liked this chapter, but of course I did. It's a Karisu chapter. Also, it tells us more about Yuiga as a character. We get some more fun moments with all of them. And Miharu's misunderstanding is an actual misunderstanding and not just a contrived misunderstanding. So 2 thumbs up for sure. And then The Promised Neverland 70 Hide and Seek. It has to be 2 thumbs up. How do you see Lucas's face when he realizes the Nameless Man is still alive and not give it 2 thumbs up? oh man, that face. He's broken, but also happy. Like, the realization that his friend has survived breaks him, and I love it. So, really, really fun jump this week. My name has been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum, and we'll be back next week, hopefully with a warmer episode of the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Jump has to offer.